Today's video is to provide you a guide through homework 3.2 with a price-taking firm. So we know that the cost of Tony's Pizzeria depends on the number of pizzas it produces each week. Specifically, it has a fixed cost of $1,000 and a marginal cost that starts at $1 and increases with the number of pizzas it produces, as described by the following equations. Right, so the total cost as a function of Q is 1,000, that's why I say it has a fixed cost of 1,000, plus Q squared divided by 40. The average cost is, of course, the cost divided by Q, right? So it's 1,000 divided by Q plus Q divided by Q, that's equal to 1, plus Q squared over 40 divided by Q, that's Q over 40. And the marginal cost is, of course, the first derivative. You don't need to know that, but if you've studied calculus, it's the first derivative of the cost as well, right? So if you take the first derivative of this equation here, right, the 1,000 drops out, the Q turns into that 1, Q squared over 40 turns into Q over 20. So the first step of solving this problem is to open up a spreadsheet and verify that the cost function is calculated correctly, right, with what you open up, and then calculate the average cost and the marginal cost of producing 0, 100, 200, all the way up to 1,000 pizzas a week using the above equations. So I have already put, this is the, if you click on the link, this is what you start out with, right? So actually here I have the actual equation, right? So you can see that if you compare what you have in the link, right, to what we calculate when we get the cost, we get the numbers that I provided you, right? To calculate the cost for any given quantity, we just simply go back to the equation that we had, 1,000 plus Q squared divided by 40, right? Here you can see the equation we're using to calculate cost is 1,000 plus Q, right? B3 is Q, plus 1 divided by 40, 1/40th times Q, again, squared, right? The hat. 2 is how you square something. So if you're producing 0 pizzas, of course, the cost is 1,000, the fixed cost. If you're producing 100 pizzas, right, it's going to be 1,000 plus 100 plus 1/40th of 100 squared, right, which gets you 1,350, and so on. Right, so the cost function is indeed calculated correctly. The average cost, to calculate the average cost, we could, of course, take the cost and divide it by Q, right? So you could simply say it's equal to cost divided by Q. We'll get nothing for when you produce 0 pizzas. It doesn't make sense to think of average cost when you produce 0, but that would get you the right numbers, right, for all the other numbers of pizzas, right? So this is what your average cost would look like. Alternatively, you could just use the equation that I give you, right, that tells you the average cost is 1,000 divided by Q plus 1 plus Q divided by 40. Right? You could say this equals 1,000 divided by Q plus, now I'm forgetting it, plus 1 plus Q divided by Q divided by 40. So plus Q divided by 40, right? And if you go through it that way, you should get exactly the same numbers. Well, except for that one. And then the marginal cost, before we've calculated the marginal cost, is simply the change in the cost, right? Here we can't quite use that method because if you took the marginal cost, right, as simply $1,350 minus 1,000, $350 is not the marginal cost of producing the 100th pizza. It's actually the marginal cost of producing 100 pizzas. We're going, what's the change in cost from going from 0 pizzas to 100 pizzas? Well, the change in cost then would be $350, right? The marginal cost, you want to go back to the equation we have, right? We know that the marginal cost is simply 1 plus Q divided by 20. And marginal cost equals 1 plus Q divided by 20, right? And if you take that and drag it down, you have the marginal cost. You have the marginal cost for any quantity of pizzas from 100, 200, 300, all the way up to 1,000. I'll just do this all in my favorite font, Times New Roman. Okay, so we've calculated out. The next step is for us to create a figure illustrating Tony's average cost and marginal cost for the pizzeria when it produces between 1 and 1,000 pizzas, right? So to do that, you want to highlight, I would just highlight all the data, and later on we're going to have to get rid of some of it, right? We can't have the total cost. If we included the total cost, then it's going to be very hard to see average and marginal cost, because the total cost is in thousands of dollars, and average and marginal is, never more than $51. So what we want to do is insert a chart, right? This is slightly different, of course, if you do it in Excel, but it can be done in Excel. What we want to do then, the x-axis, right, is actually the quantity. Oh, this time, for whatever reason, the spreadsheet knew that what we had, our first line should be the horizontal axis. So actually, completely fine there. All we need to do is take this, the big cost function, and remove it, because as you can see, you can't see average cost and marginal cost right now. It's in a completely different scale. So remove the fixed cost, and then now you have average cost and marginal cost for Tony's Pizzeria. I'm gonna put it over here so we can see it well. There are a few things that we might want to change. Right? We could call this cost curves for the pizzeria. So we could change the title. Okay, we got that. Maybe another thing that would be nice to change is along the horizontal axis. Can we change maybe the number of labels? We could definitely change, although I might be in the wrong spot. If you think that doing this is tricky and it's hard for you to remember where everything is, I'm exactly the same. Oh, where did they put it? Maybe if we highlight it, it'll just show us where to go. Still don't see. You can clearly change it, so instead of seeing 250, 500, and so on, seeing every 100 would probably be the best way to set this up. But I currently don't see it, so I am going to just leave it as is, and you can figure it out on your own. Not super important. I think the figure I'll provide you for the official key is going to look slightly prettier than this. But this is the basic setup, right? We have the increasing marginal cost, right? Where there is a fixed cost of $1,000 of just having the pizzeria. Maybe that's the rent that Tony has to pay to rent out the space for the pizzeria every week. But then the marginal cost is upward sloping, so that the first pizza costs not very much money. Even the 100th pizza, the marginal cost is just $6, right? But then it increases steadily to $11, $16, and so on, right? And note that the marginal cost passes through the average cost curve at the minimum of the average cost. So when marginal cost is below average cost, right, that means the average cost has to be declining, because it means if you produce one more pizza, right, that pizza is going to be cheaper than what it's been on average. So if you produce it, of course, that brings the average down a little bit. And that continues to be the case until the marginal cost is exactly equal to average cost. On the other side of this curve, when the marginal cost is greater than average cost, and producing one more pizza, what it's going to cost you to produce that one more pizza is more than it's cost you on average, which is dragging up the average cost curve. So this figure sort of makes sense. It looks like the figures that we have in the book. Okay, so if Tony's Pizzeria is a price taker, what is its supply curve and why? If Tony's a price taker, right, it means he's not setting a price at all. He's just going to be told what the price of pizza is, and he's going to decide how much to produce. His marginal cost curve then will be his supply curve. When the price of pizzas in the market is low, say, $10 or something like that, then he's not going to produce very many pizzas, because he'll only produce those pizzas where his marginal cost is less than $10. If the price increases to, say, $40, he'll want to produce all these pizzas where his marginal cost is less than the $40. So his marginal cost curve is his supply curve. Let's suppose now that the price of pizzas is $46. how many pizzas will Tony sell and how much profit will he make? Well, imagine that the price is the $46. I'm just going to type 46 because we'll actually use that, right? What would his revenue be? Well, let's calculate his revenue. And I'm going to make everything up here bold and write justified just for simplicity. Oh, and bold. Oh, and maybe italicized. All right, so when the price of pizza is $46, what would his revenue be from producing any quantity of pizza? Well, if he produced, right, 0 pizzas and sold them for $46 each, right, he would of course make $0. If he produced 100 pizzas and sold them for $46 each, he would of course make $4,600, and so on, right? If you want to be able to drag something like this down, right, if you just drag this down, it's not going to work. And the reason for that is the spreadsheet is going to think that as you're dragging it down, right, you wanted this first one, right, you wanted 100 times 46, but then the next one, they think you want 200 times R, which they don't understand what that means. The way you fix that in spreadsheets, the way you hold something constant like that, is you go over here in front of the 1, you put a little $sign. And what that's telling the spreadsheet is you don't want to change the row on the F1, right? And so if you take that and pull it down, we should get everything correct. All right, and of course everything we're going to be calculating here is actually going to be in dollars. So I will also tell the spreadsheet that, and maybe tell it that we don't care about cents. So the revenue of producing 100 pizzas at $46 would be $4,600, right? If you produce 200 pizzas, of course, it's going to be twice that, $9,200, and so on. The nice thing about calculating the revenue this way is now we can simply calculate the profits, right, by taking the revenue and subtracting out the cost. So what's the profit always going to be? Well, if you produce 0 pizzas, right, so your revenue is 0, and you still had to pay rent, you're going to lose $1,000, right? But if you calculate that for other quantities, right, you can see that your profits are going to be highest when you produce how many pizzas? Well, your profits are going to be highest when you produce exactly 900 pizzas, right? Your profits would be $19,250, which would be more than producing 800 or 1,000 or any other thing. And why is that the case? Well, that's because that's where your marginal cost is $46. Right? If we just used your supply curve, we would have said you should produce pizza until you get to $46. You shouldn't produce 1,000 pizzas. Your 1,000th pizza is going to have a marginal cost of $51. No point in producing something that will cost you $51 if you can only sell it for $46. So your profits are naturally going to be maximized right here. I'm going to just highlight this whole row since it's sort of the solution for the first part of that problem. I'll make it green. Right? So you're asked, how many pizzas will Tony sell? Well, he's going to sell 900 pizzas. How much profit will he make? Well, he's going to have a revenue of $41,000. He's going to have a cost of $22,000, and he's going to make $19,000 in profits. Now you're asked, suppose the price of pizza is just $21, so the price of pizza falls. How many pizzas will Tony sell now? Right? How much profit will he make? We just do exactly the same thing. So now we know the price is 21, right? Essentially, right, we had a price of 46 up here, and we produced 900 pizzas. Now we're going to reduce it to $21, right? And it looks like we're going to produce, approximately, you come here to the marginal cost, 400 pizzas, right? The 400th pizza is the one that costs you exactly $21. All the pizzas before that have a marginal cost of less than $21. Of course, those are exactly the pizzas you want to produce. So again, we know that this is going to be the solution already, but we should be able to verify that when we go through and calculate out what the profit's going to be. Oh, I forgot to write profit here. Let's calculate the revenue and a profit again when the price is just 21. Right? We could actually, let's do it this way. right? What's the revenue going to be? Well, it's going to be $21 now times whatever quantity you have. Again, if you want that to work, when you drag it down, you need to tell it that H1, you don't want to change the 1 as you drag down. You want that 1 to stay there. We just want the quantity, right? Here, the purple box to move down as we drag down. Right? If we calculate out the revenue, we find this. Well, I guess maybe I shouldn't have highlighted yet because no, it's not highlighted, but we'll fix that in a second. What's the profit going to be? Again, the profit's always going to be equal to your revenue minus your costs. Of course, if you produce 0, again, you're going to have a loss of $1,000 or a profit of minus $1,000. But if you drag that down, look at this, and what we should see is that when pizzas are selling for $21, right, you're going to maximize your profits by producing until your marginal cost equals exactly $21. That's going to give you the highest possible profit. Here we see your profit would be $3,000. If you produce, say, just 300 pizzas, you wouldn't be maximizing your profits, right? Because from pizza 300 to pizza 400, your marginal cost is actually less than $21. Of course, you want to produce those pizzas if it's going to cost you less than $21 to produce them, and you can still sell it for 21 bucks. And if you went ahead and you're like, oh, I'm making profit, let me produce 500 pizzas instead, you could produce 500 pizzas, but the 500th pizza is going to cost you $26 to produce, right? You're only going to be able to sell it again for the $21. And so your profits would actually be lower if you produce 500 pizzas. You don't want to produce pizzas that get that expensive, right? You want to stop right at 400. Right here is the 21 bucks. Okay. Now assume that there are lots of people in town who work crummy jobs with no employment rents, and they're just as capable as Tony at running a pizzeria. And we're going to assume that means that they have the same cost curves. What will be the price of pizzas if firms enter the market whenever it is profitable, whenever there's profit to be made? Well, there's always going to be profit to be made, right? As long as the price is above the minimum average cost, right? As long as Tony is paid more than it costs him on average to produce pizza, there's a positive economic profit, and other businesses or other people are going to look around and say, oh, maybe I should get into the pizza business as well. So the minimum average cost is actually the long run sort of cost in a perfectly competitive market. If we look at the average cost, right, we see that if you produce just 100 pizzas, its average cost is actually kind of high. The minimum of the average cost is right here when he produces 200 pizzas. If Tony produces 200 pizzas, right, his average cost is just $11. Of course, it's exactly equal to his marginal cost, right, because the marginal cost curve passes through the minimum of the average cost. So what would the price of pizzas be if people continue to enter the market as long as there's positive profit to be made? The price would be $11 for a pizza. Right. Suppose the price of pizzas has converged to the long-run competitive equilibrium price. How many pizzas will Tony sell, and how much profit will he make? Well, if the price is 11 bucks, right, I guess we could highlight yet another row here. I'll make that, I'm running out of green colors. I'll shift over to this one, right? If the price is $11, he's going to provide exactly 11, and if we want to see what his profit's going to be, we should already know his profit's going to be 0, right? Because his average cost is 11 bucks and the price is going to be 11 bucks. But if we want to do just what we did here, right, we can easily see that again by typing 11 here. Calculating his revenue is always 11 times quantity. We don't want that 11 to change. Instead of typing the price up here, right, you could, of course, just type 11 times the quantity rather than J1. But if you're going to use J1, you need to make sure that you have the dollar sign in front of the 1. You calculate the revenue. And the profit then is simply going to be the revenue minus his cost. And what you're going to see, oh, I did it wrong. What you're going to see is that he's going to have 0 profit, of course, when he produces exactly 200 pizzas, right? But that's still going to be the most profit he can make. All the alternatives would give him actually a negative profit. So he is indeed Oh, I messed it up. It's color coding. Right. If he produced, say, 300 pizzas and had to sell them for $11, he would lose money and so on. So in the long run, right, if the price falls to the minimum average cost of all these pizzerias, then he's going to be making zero profit. And that may seem counterintuitive. A lot of people wonder, why would anyone operate a business if they're going to make zero profit? The important thing to understand here is when economists say you're making zero profit, they're saying you're making enough money to pay all of your employees, to pay rent, and to pay the owner of the firm sort of for their entrepreneurial services, to pay them the normal rate of return on whatever capital they've invested, and so on. So zero economic profit doesn't mean that you don't have any accounting profits. Presumably Tony wouldn't be doing this unless he was earning a wage at least as high as what he'd earn elsewhere, and so on. The point is, right, in the long run, in a perfectly competitive market, you'd expect him to be selling 200 pizzas for the market price to fall all the way to $11, and for all these firms to just barely be getting by. Okay, would the total surplus be greater or smaller if Tony bribed the mayor to rescind the business permits of all competing firms and make Tony a monopolist? Right? So of course, Tony's not happy about the price falling as more firms enter, right? When there were very few firms and he was able to sell pizza for $46, right? He was making $19,000 in profit, right? Above and beyond what he had to pay himself for any capital he invested in himself for the entrepreneurial services he provides and so on. And then as the price falls to $21, right? His profit then falls significantly from $19,000 to $3,000, right? As the price continues to fall all the way down to $11, right? Then he's making a profit of $0. So he's not happy about it. But if he got all these other firms kicked out of the business, right, by bribing the mayor to rescind their business licenses, that would indeed increase his profit, but it wouldn't increase the total surplus. It would increase his profit by less than it would increase the total surplus, which is exactly why economists tend to like perfectly competitive markets more than monopolistic markets like the iWidgets example from 2 weeks ago. For extra credit, right, you can work through what Tony would do if he was a monopolist and faced this demand curve, right, where the willingness to pay of consumers is 71 minus Q divided by 50. If you work through that example in the exact same way that we worked through the example of the iWidgets, you'll find that he's going to constrain production. So there's going to be some pizzas where his marginal cost is going to be less than what someone's willing to pay, but he's not going to serve those people because he'd rather serve fewer pizzas to people at a higher price than lower the price to serve everyone who's willing to purchase a pizza for more than marginal cost. So I'll leave that to you on your own, although I'll provide that solution for you as well in the key that we provide you before the exam. So I hope that helps clarify things. Of course, if you feel stuck on this problem or something doesn't make sense, post on Canvas, send me an email, or meet with your GTA or me in our digital office hours. Have a great weekend.